We're talking about a movie where Batman with Spider-Man, the Winter Soldier, and Pennywise the Clown are all in a fight together. But none of them can compare to the Lord. YouTube was good. It's your boy Jody Joe. Welcome to Jody's Corner. This is going to be a movie review. I got to make this spoiler free because I don't want to give anything away. This is Of the Devil All the Time, an interesting title. It stars Tom Holland. You got Robert Pattinson in this thing. There's a lot of actors and actresses in this movie, but the main ones, you could throw a little Bill Skarsgård in there too if you wanted to. Shockingly, Haley Bennett is in this movie, and she was almost unrecognizable. Let me talk to you about this movie. This movie is a story about religion and the attack on religion, and hillbillies and the attack on hillbillies. And it just sheds light into how dumb some people are. Just at the end of the day, just how dumb some people are by the stories that they're telling here. And how real, how people like this actually do exist. It's really it's putting the mirror in front of people who are these, it's on people who are overly religious, on religious people in general. This movie is going to offend some people, I'm sure. But, I don't talk about religion or politics on my channel because I know that's an iffy topic. So I'm just going to review this movie based on what I know and what I've seen. So this movie takes place in, I think it starts probably in the 1940s, 50s, because, it follows a character named Pennywise the Clown. Let's just call him Pennywise, Bill Skarsgård. Pennywise the Clown has come home from the war. He's 12 years removed from the war, and he has a son with him, and he has this little praying table where he prays and he prays and he prays. He's very religious. He's very stricken heavily with PTSD. And it's just him trying to live the simple life after coming home from a dangerous, bloody, graphic war. And he's trying to learn how to cope with the regular society, trying to raise a son and have a wife and raise a family in peace. So this film goes back and forth in time. When you do that, you're going to lose people. But it's easy to follow along the way they structured it. It goes back and forth in time. It changes locations a lot. It tells perspective of different people's stories throughout the film. Like we'll bounce to the female, we'll bounce to the male, we'll bounce to the father, we'll bounce to the grandma. So it tells you all these. It's similar to Crash in a sense that you have a lot of different perspectives. And I understand what the whole cum shot of this movie is about. The cum shot of this movie is to, at the end of the movie, have everything come together for you and it feel like an MCU movie in 2.5 hours. Speaking of 2.5 hours, this movie is long. It is long and it can be bull enduring. I was about to say bull enduring, dull and boring. At times, for me, there was a couple moments where I was like, trying to fight that sleep. I was almost gone, but then I brought it back because something came up. And then ever since that one specific scene popped up, I was like, what the freak is going on? So this movie starts to get really interesting after the 1.5 minute mark. So you're watching this movie for an hour and a half with a slow creep, slow build up. Like, where are they going? I'm understanding the foundations you guys are laying, and I'm following along with these different timelines. And as the viewer, it's very easy for a lot of people at home who have this Netflix subscription and click on this movie to get disinterested and walk the freak away and go make some Pop-Tarts or something, because it gives you an hour and a half, in my opinion, of like slow, steady, nothing. And that's just not enough to capture and cultivate people. So now, I really wanted to see this movie because Tom Holland's in it. And I'm tired of him being a little boy in the MCU. He's a kiddie Spider-Man. I'm like, all right, let me see if Tom Holland actually has those chops. You know what I'm saying? And Tom Holland comes into the movie about an hour in, and you start to see who his character is, and you get the reveal of, oh, okay, by the time you get to Tom Holland's character, he has this benefit of already knowing him without knowing without seeing Tom Holland himself play the character. So there's already some type of affection for the character by the time you see Tom Holland come into play. And I think he did a good job. I think Tom Holland did a good job. It wasn't nothing. His accent was rough at times, because it's at times it's enough for him to have to play an American accent or somebody who's supposed to be from Queens, let alone playing an American accent, but a hillbilly country American accent on top of that. So there were some times where his accent slipped for sure, but it's okay. It's to be expected. I would just say just cast American actors to play American roles, but that's a big, huge issue right there in itself. Let's move on. Later on in the story, we get we understand why he is the way he is, and we come into a lot of you guys want to know because he's like the star. He's like the big attraction here is Robert Pattinson. Batman shows up. So Spider-Man is living his life and he's living his best life as best as he can. Batman comes in from Gotham like, what's happening? I'm here to save you all. So Batman's playing this character, this preacher who is there to take the community and these hillbilly folk to the next level of, worship and progress and providence. You know what I'm saying? And it turns out that Batman is a lot like the Joker. He's Batman but then he got some Joker elements to him. So Batman's kind of like on his super vigilante status, and Spider-Man is not having any parts of it because Spider-Man has a Gwen Stacy by his side who is like his sister, who he loves and adores and looks after because she's like Peter Parker, often bullied, and he wants to look after her and be her hero. So Spider-Man has a Gwen Stacy, and Gwen Stacy, she feeling a certain type of way about Batman because Batman's just, he has this beer belly. They try to, desexify him, but he still has that preteen Howard the Wolf face. No smudge on there on my lens. I have to get that off later. So he still got that preteen Twilight face. So naturally, there's nothing that Gwen Stacy could do to stop that charm. So she falls. She wants to get some. And Batman's like, the Lord sees all. You gonna need to show and reveal yourself to the Lord. And he uses this religion. He uses the religion in order to have his way with not her particularly, but society. He is a preacher, Batman the preacher, who understands that these hillbilly folk are willing to do anything to appease him. Not because he's special, but because he's the preacher of the town. Simply because he went to Bible college and he had the older man who was preceded him says, I'm stepping down, but he's coming in. I believe it was his nephew. And they worship him. They worship him as if he was Jesus Christ himself. And anything that he says, and he believes that anything he says goes. Like there's a scene where the entire town brings him something to eat. And it's just crazy to see how that scene in itself, how that plays out is incredibly weird. But there's something subtle in this movie that starts with Pennywise the Clown. Pennywise the Clown had a hard life. Pennywise, he had wars and he dealt with a lot of tragedy and PTSD. But Pennywise the Clown went to go get himself a donut and coffee. And in the shop that was serving him the donut and coffee was a Catwoman. And boy, Catwoman was thick. So he was like, a Catwoman played by Haley Bennett, she gained 70 pounds for this role. I said, she looks familiar. For a big girl, I said, she's thick and beautiful. She has that beautiful, familiar face. I had to look her up. I said, is that Haley Bennett? I said, Haley Bennett, IMDb. Boom. Sure enough, The Devil All the Time popped up. It's her. It's Haley Bennett. She was a very thin woman, but she gained lots of weight for this role. Shout out to Haley Bennett for doing that. They must have put an extra couple $100,000 on that paycheck for that. But she was looking good. She was rocking it. So Pennywise falls in love with this thick Catwoman. They spit out a Spider-Man, and they're trying to leave their life in tranquility. Yeah, but that good old Devil All the Time comes around and says, nope. He throws in his wrench. Ha! So naturally, they want to react. Lord. The Lord will fix. The Lord will bless. Even though I am a terrible, despicable person, the Lord will bless me because I believe in him. I mean, some real out of this world shit. And there's one thing in this movie. And when it comes to Spider-Man being in this movie and Batman, when it comes to Spider-Man, he had a lot of meat on his bone when it comes to narrative and story. They built and hyped that character up, and they built him for the first hour and a half to be this character. And then once he became, and I was watching Tom Holland play this role with this life that he has to live, that was played by a little boy, but now it's his time to come into his own. I don't feel like he lived up acting wise to his own story that he's a part of. You know, you witnessed the younger version of himself, this sad little boy. So if I gave you a story about your mom is dead, your daddy committed suicide, your dog's gone, you got cancer, your sister's done, she hung herself, your grandma stressed out in the bed, and you ain't got no prospects or aspects in life, there's nothing over the horizon. Every turn you get, the devil is there, your whole life. And I explain that story to somebody that I don't know, who doesn't know about this movie or anything. They're going to be like, oh my God, that's terrible. Who would live that life? It strikes you with this amazing pain, but we actually witness it in this movie, but I don't feel for him. And that's a travesty. I didn't feel anything for Tom Holland's character. All of the stuff that he went through, there is a disconnect here. There is a serious disconnect between the weight of the character and the actor. Tom Holland, I guess, failed to convey to me that he was this character. It was almost like he was a different person. And it shouldn't feel that way. It's the character that I should feel for. And there's moments where I'm watching, I'm like, oh, that's sad. Dang, bro, that's tough. You got to go through that. But I didn't feel it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's an observance. I am observing. That's it. I'm observing him go through these hard times. I'm observing these terrible situations that he's going through, but I don't feel any of it. And that's a problem for me. And it has a lot to do with the writing. The writing pace and the structure of it does get sloppy and jumbled at times. Yeah, I feel like the director in this movie did a decent job, but then sometimes he did a terrible job by some of the scenes and scene selections and choices that was done here. The script in itself, how they describe these scenes as well, it's just weird. It's just weird. Like, there would be a shot where you think something's coming up next because it's such a heavy scene, and then it'll cut straight to another time and another character in another state. And you're like, wait a minute, that's cool and all that you're trying to, but over here something was going on. And by the time it comes back there, you have less of an effect. It has less of an effect. The first 48 uses this style. In the first 48 on A&E, they'll start off with one murder and they'll get you so invested in that murder. And then right before something dramatic happens, they cut to a whole other murder in another state. And you're like, wait a minute. I don't want to learn about Tuccino, who died in Missouri, who got sprayed by Bebe and them. I want to know about D-Ray and Q-Tip with that double murder over there. I don't care about. It's one of those situations. So there's just a lot going on. This is a long movie. But thankfully, Tom Holland really didn't do it for me, but I think he did a good job as performing his lines. He was very straight and flat, but the character is not straight flat. The character is a freaking roller coaster, and I feel like Tom Holland didn't capture it. So I guess he didn't really do what I wanted him to do, I guess. Robert Pattinson comes into play. Batman. He is... Batman came in here with that fire. First, I'm like, okay, he's just Batman. He's just aloof. But then when you start to see who Batman's really about, what he might be hiding, you're like, oh my gosh, Batman, really Batman? All right, preacher Batman doing this thing. There's a scene where Spider-Man and Batman are in the church together, and it's riveting. It's the best scene. It's so good. It's so sick. I love it. Bro, nigga, Robert Pattinson, He was getting on. Y'all know y'all know what I'm talking about when y'all see the scene. Yeah, I just lose myself. I lose control. Yeah, really. Yes, and I just have my way with her. I find myself just cramming her head and skull. Does she throw up? Oh, these niggas sounded like me. Bro, I was like, get that shit, Batman. So Spider-Man and Batman have some erotic scene together in a church, and that shit weird. It's wild and weird, and it's lovely. I loved every part of Batman came and saved the day. Shout out to Batman, Robert Pattinson. You did a good job. There's one scene that I was emotionally wrecked with, and I think that it has to do with my own personal tragedy, losing a member of my family, where young Arvin had to go through a serious traumatic pain because of the lard, because these country folk are dumb as freak. Like all the while watching, there was a scene that happened that is just so asinine because of the lard. It just broke my heart, and I felt really bad. Yeah, it's tough. But all the while watching this, I'm just saying to myself, nigga, come to LA. Like, y'all going through all this hillbilly shit, these hillbilly problems. Only thing I keep saying to myself is, bro, come to the West, bro. And towards the end, when he got in a certain type of vehicle, V-dub, I was like, oh, he about to come to the... But no. All this is happening. So many bad things happen in this movie. And I just keep telling myself, get out of there, dog. This the 50s and the 60s you in? Man, LA popping in the 50s and 60s. People get that country, that weird lifestyle. I feel like all they needed was the city to get out of the sticks of just chaos and cult behavior. Just cultish. Like, it's just, they're trapped. Get out of there. You bouncing back and forth from country to country, but it's a country state to another country state. It's weird, man. You need to go take that trip out west, bro. We got beaches and girls with titties out on the street, liberating cities, sidewalks, cement, lights. Like, bro, like coming to California would have solved all his problems. But anyway, Pennywise the clown set Spider-Man up for disaster is what I'm trying to say here. Pennywise, who is Spider-Man's father, really set him up for disaster. Once Pennywise and Catwoman married, they spit out a Spider-Man and Pennywise ruined his son Spider-Man's life, and Spider-Man was just trying to figure it out, because every single time that they would go 2 inches, the devil will come in and knock him back down 6 inches. That's why it's called the devil all the time, because everywhere that they go in this movie, the devil is there, according to them. That's how they see it. The devil. This is an incredibly religious book. This was adapted from a novel, and I know that I don't know much about the novel. I just seen that this is an old book. This is an old country hillbilly anus book. I don't know why they adapted this shit to a film. I understand it's showing light on hillbilly folk and where they thought hillbilly overly religious cult folk, to see how it's crazy, man. It's really crazy the leps and the depths that people will go to in order to appease their idea and their depiction of what the lard is. You know what I mean? It's very much like when you watch a slavery movie, and right before they whip the slaves to death, they go to the Bible and quote scriptures out of the Bible, talking about livestock and stuff like that in comparison to actual humans, using the Bible to further reinsert themselves with their own ideology to why they do what they do to the slaves, getting it from the Bible, as the ultimate motivational tool. It's crazy. Like, that's what this movie is. And it's really, to simplify this movie, it's a folktale about the Lord and the devil, where the devil just owns everything. That's really what it is. He's everywhere. But you really have to put your mind state in the state that they're trying to sell you here. You got to degenerate your brain 100 years. So you know how we live in 2020? Nah, we need to go full retard to really to understand why they think this way. And I do. I understand. That's how it was for a lot of people back then. That's how they thought. Believe it or not, that's how people still think to this day in certain parts of the United States of America. So, I feel like this movie without Winter Soldier. I'm sorry. Winter Soldier has his own storyline where he has a sister and shit, and he's doing his. Winter Soldier is Winter Soldier in this motherfucker. He's, it's. I feel like his storyline wasn't even needed in this movie at all. I feel like his storyline wasn't strong in the first half. It became stronger in the second half. But because everybody else had strong storylines in the first half, you wanted to see them end in the second half. I didn't care for the Winter Soldier in this movie, nor did I care for his storyline and his own motivations about him being sheriff, about him having a whore sister. It was nice to see the wife and John Connor in this motherfucker. John Connor has a wife who has a station wagon who picks up hitchhikers, to have fun with. And, that's cool and all, but you didn't really need. And I predicted a lot of this stuff. I legitimately predicted Spider-Man needing a hitchhike ride. I predicted so many things like, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. It's very predictable because once you buy into the insanity that this movie sells you on, you can if you start to become insane, I recommend this. Become insane with this movie and you will understand and be able to predict a lot of crazy shit that's going to go down. Bruh. But overall, this is a movie that had a lot going on, but it didn't really just hit. Batman was amazing in this. He was the best. Spider-Man he was okay, but I feel like he let the character down. Winter Soldier wasn't needed, and this movie was entirely too long. Pennywise didn't have enough meat on his bone. I was expecting more of Pennywise, but I understand he was a plot device in order to set up destroyed Spider-Man. Catwoman was great. She was thick. And yeah, man, that's the story of The Devil All the Time. Universal Universe MCU DC collaboration edition, Pennywise. Let me know what you guys think, but what grade do I got for this thing? There was still a lot to be desired here. I feel like it was almost like, it's not really all that great. So I'll give The Devil All the Time. I'll give it a C. Yeah, so that's where I'm at with it. It's a mediocre. Thought about giving it a C plus, but there's just too much. Is it worth the watch? That's the thing. Unless you have all day, I feel like if you have all day where you ain't doing nothing, sure, put it on, see where you get. It might put you to sleep, but I feel like if you get past that hour and a half threshold, I believe you'll be smooth sailing all the way into the end of the next hour to finish you off strong. Overall, this is just it's not a good movie. It's not a great movie. It's an okay movie for some people. Some people will absolutely hate this movie, and I'll understand why, because it has a serious, strict attack on Christianity and religion itself, and country folk. Period. Just all of anybody who's country might probably feel offended by this movie in 2020. Back then, they yeah, that's about right. But today, it's just like, jeez, man, that's why y'all depicting us. If it's true, if that's how they really are, it is what it is. So, shout out to you guys. Thank you guys so very much for watching. I appreciate you. Subscribe to the channel for more of that real content. Patty Jenkins for The Last Son of Krypton. I'm Jody Joe, and I'm out this thing, man. Deuces.